Hello and welcome to a special live edition of Jonesing for Justice, your fix for legal news, information, and entertainment. I'm Jackie Jones.
I'm Connor Wigington.
Dan DiCino.
And today, we're going to talk about Harvey Weinstein. Apparently, he had a court date today. And he is charged with 5 different felonies. What do you think about that, Jackie? 5 felonies? Do you think that's too little? You think that's too much?
If he were in Delaware County, he would have no fewer than 15 felonies.
No fewer than 15 felonies.
15 and a summary offense.
And 1 traffic ticket.
A traffic ticket, because that was the probable cause to stop him.
No.
Not the women claiming that he raped and assaulted them.
No.
So, Connor, I guess what I think is that these are not little charges. These are very serious.
No, these are, in fact, rape charges. I don't really know how else to describe rape besides forcefully having intercourse. But he is, in fact, charged with this, and the one where he appeared today in court stemmed from a 2013 episode.
Well, it's interesting. There's a 2013 and a 2006 episode. We actually have a district judge watching, which is interesting because he handles preliminary hearings on a regular basis. So this is the kind of thing that, in our case, a magistrate or district judge would hear regularly. Is there enough evidence to go forward and take this case to trial?
So just to clear up, his hearing today was only to make sure there was enough to go forward. They didn't actually decide whether he was guilty or innocent today.
Oh, Dan reminding us to be real lawyers and tell the truth, which is true, because people hear things like there was a hearing, they're like, Harvey Weinstein is guilty. Well, it hasn't happened quite yet,
Got a little bit to go for that, yeah.
And we all know how the court system works.
No, we don't all know. Tell us all how it works, Connor.
Well, the court system is a little on the slower side as opposed to the faster side.
Are you suggesting government's slow?
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but
I'm triggered.
apparently everyone's triggered 5 days before Christmas. But, you know.
said Christmas.
Oh, no.
Jones
Glad
and
it wasn't me
Associates
this
does
time.
not endorse this Christmas thing of which the two of them have been speaking all day.
Apparently Christmas
tree
is
is so
scheduled for December 25th. But the tree's great. We even painted a little tree just to get in the holiday spirit. But, yes, I painted the Christmas tree. You're welcome. You're welcome. It looks beautiful. We can't bring it on camera
later.
though.
We'll put it on
Oh, we're
Instagram
absolutely putting it on
It was only
Instagram.
the finest dry erase markers money can buy.
But this was the first hearing of probably many hearings that will be scheduled. Harvey Weinstein's legal team did file a motion to dismiss the charges, and the judge denied that motion.
Remember my plan to make this a podcast episode? I totally forgot to start the recorder.
Well, we can't go
Looks
back
like we're
now.
doing Facebook Live
I have
We've come
I have
too far.
headphones too.
We've come too far.
All of my plans to be great,
You're still great, Jackie.
Luckily for the viewers, this became even more exclusive for them. So all your
right.
friends who are missing out, they're missing out.
They're missing out. So, I guess from a legal perspective, since Dan and Connor have both reminded us that we're lawyers and that this is not just someone being found guilty, I guess we should think the first stage in a criminal case is to determine if there's enough evidence to move forward. Right?
Should we talk about that a little bit?
Please do.
So, at least in Delaware County, where we practice, we have what's called a preliminary hearing. And the district attorney needs to prove from a prima facie level, what does that mean? All that means is it's a fancy word for more likely than not that the charges you are being charged with actually did happen. It's a very...
And that you were involved in them.
and that you were involved in them, and that people can identify you, or a person can identify you as one committing the charges.
Now, I'm going to sound like a professor for a minute because, I did study that whole PhD in government thing where I was doing, right? And remember that... so crazy, that we're looking back to the old traditions prior, common law traditions prior to the United States being founded, where people could actually be arrested, taken away from their homes, and their family not know where they were. So this preliminary hearing is to make sure that someone who's a peer is not only aware that you've been arrested, but they also make sure there's enough evidence for it to go forward so people who are innocent are not just being held indefinitely.
Yeah. And then, while we're on that topic, just going off of traditional Commonwealth, what about a preliminary arraignment?
Who cares about that?
No one really cares about that.
Actually, it's really important, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, it is really important. It's more of a formality now that most people waive, but you can still do it. Basically, you have an opportunity to show up and hear what it is that they think that you did, and so you can have a chance to kind of prepare yourself.
And here's the part about the preliminary arraignment versus the formal arraignment, which Dan just talked about. The preliminary arraignment is ordinarily, in our system, where bail is set.
Mm-hmm.
So that is huge. It's huge because a lot of people plead guilty solely because they could not get out on bail, and then they're offered a plea deal that says, well, if you take this plea deal, you get out of jail. So bail is actually a huge, huge deal at the preliminary arraignment stage.
Yes. And it's really right after you've been processed, where it's a short time
Right.
after you've been processed where you appear in front of a judge, either through video or in person, and the judge reads the charges.
So you know what you're charged with, and then ultimately you know what it takes for you to get out of jail right now if you can.
And just to clarify, you don't have to put up all of the bail at one time to get out of jail. You only have to put up, I think it's 10%.
Well, that depends, because you can have a 10% bail, or you could have a cash bail, which means you have to put all the bail up.
That's not fun.
That is not fun.
That's not
But
fun at
we've
all.
gotten so off topic because Harvey Weinstein obviously had the money to get out on bail, right?
Yes.
So now he's at a position, oh, my mommy's watching. Wow.
And just so everybody knows, that means Harvey Weinstein doesn't get away with charges. He still has to go to hearings. He just gets to sit at home until he goes to the hearing.
Well, I mean, imagine what that feels like, though, to people who are poor, where their family members don't get that opportunity. They have sat in jail the whole time. It does feel like it's a different justice for the rich versus the poor for those people.
Well, I don't know about you, but I have a funny feeling this case is going to move faster than most normal cases, too,
I-
for the timetable. Most people
Right.
don't just sit in jail for a couple weeks and then, okay, here's your trial. It's a little bit more than that.
Scheduled for March, so that is
There's a
coming
few
up pretty
months.
quickly. And probably he can afford to have attorneys who push forward and say, we're going to only focus on his case for a while and really push it forward quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's helpful to Mr. Weinstein. Do you think that's helpful for him?
It's definitely, I mean, look, everybody when they call a lawyer, everybody imagines a lawyer, is going to work on my case. My case is that big case. They're going to get me justice. And as we know, we've been over this before, it's not usually the way it works.
I'm going to be
However,
blunt. It's not helpful.
I
It's
mean,
not at all helpful.
I agree.
It's
I
not
agree.
helpful because of the evidence that is allegedly against him in his case. So if you have his case going through the system at a quicker pace, the quicker he's going to be convicted. And if he is convicted, then it's going to be a quicker sentencing date.
Well, from a defense standpoint, not just even how quickly he's going to be convicted, but think about how we're in the Me Too and Time's Up movement right now. Finding a jury of his peers who have not thought about him as the architect of the Me Too movement. I mean, think about it. When you think Me Too, who's the main perpetrator you think of?
Harvey Weinstein.
Like, I would want to continue his case out until some new scandal starts or somebody else is the face of the Me Too movement.
Which is what happened, I believe, with Bill Cosby, where it was continued.
They just try to keep continuing it
It
forever.
didn't work,
forever.
though.
Didn't
Because
work.
that first trial was his best effort to get off. I mean, that was like, let's get out. But once Me Too started, I was like, I don't know why Cosby people didn't just wait until he was deathly ill or something.
I mean, it didn't help that every time, it was the same type of case that every time he's in court, there's a camera crew there, there's news vans there. He can't even walk out of the courthouse without, getting swamped. So, again, I'm with you on the kind of strategy point of view.
I had a case like that once, and I remember the news cameras, they came here and met with me late at night, and then the one time I was out with the kids, and we were going to the Please Touch Museum, and they were like, we'll meet you at the museum. They met me at the Please Touch Museum, and then later that same day, someone else followed me back. I came to the office, like, well, we'll meet you at the office. I'm like, I'm just bringing the kids from the museum. It was one of those cases where the news cameras were really interested in, getting my take on it. One of them even was at the police station around the corner, and they were like, hey, we can meet you there. It was intense. And I wanted it out of the media before I made a final decision on what to do.
Well, I think from any, just a gut reaction, if you ask any lawyer, they'd rather not have their case in the media than maybe have it. With few exceptions. There's exceptions, but for the most part, I imagine even Weinstein's lawyers don't want to be followed around by news crews this whole time.
Well, there's a Gloria Allred involved in this case, and she seems to like the media quite a bit.
That's why I said exceptions.
I think for us who are concerned about our clients more than we are about our own personal gain, we absolutely do not want things in the media because it doesn't usually help the client.
Fair,
Unless
yeah.
you're O.J. Simpson.
Well, that's why I said with
How does that help
exceptions.
the- huh?
Well, that's a whole other issue, guys. We're already in that Weinstein case. We need to go back and relitigate OJ.
We don't need to do that. I'm about to take the fifth. I take the fifth.
I guess I didn't take the fifth. I guess I waived my Fifth Amendment
Waived
right
them.
by just...
Waived them.
You've just
Spewing
incriminated yourself. You're done.
So now that we've gotten to the point where he has had this preliminary hearing and his lawyer, and the headlines are like, Weinstein's bid to have charges dismissed is denied. This is what we do as defense attorneys, right? You go in, you have the hearing, you go, there's no evidence. There's nothing to see here. Nothing behind the screens, people. You
Same
should deny
argument
all
every
the
time.
charges.
Yeah.
Same argument every time. And hey, every once in a while we win one of those. This was not one of those times.
It was so, I don't feel like you should have won, though. There was evidence, and it's enough for at least a prima facie case to go forward.
Imagine if the judge... Now, I know we never deal with hypotheticals. Imagine if the judge actually granted that motion.
That judge would be run out on a rail.
Run out.
Run out on a rail. Can you imagine?
Aye.
But here's the other thing. Because we're not reached the point where what's called jeopardy attached. Anyone see that movie Double Jeopardy?
I did with Ashley Judd, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, she was really good in that. And Morgan Freeman was in that too, wasn't he?
I've never seen it.
No.
You've never
Sorry.
seen Double Jeopardy?
You gotta watch that then. Go
What's
home and
that?
watch
No,
it.
he
I
was
didn't
in the
realize it
Kiss the
wasn't-
Girls movie with her. Remember that? She was kidnapped and... Okay, this
I'm
is...
foggy.
This is how I got distracted. So, if the judge were to at that point dismiss the case, in a lot of jurisdictions, because jeopardy is not attached, meaning because the jury has not been impaneled and it does not fall under the constitutional double jeopardy prohibition, they could actually refile the charges, and in our case, even ask for a different judge to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of feels like everything's stacked in favor of the prosecution, right?
It definitely feels that way sometimes.
State always wins.
I mean,
Well, not with us, they don't.
Not with us.
But it does kind of feel like that.
but
So
they
'cause
do usually win, though. Be careful.
yeah, I know. Right now, someone is taping
We're
us and
we're not trying to give people a false idea.
we don't want to be
careful.
charged. Don't
They're-
charge us with anything.
They're rather good at their jobs.
Or the things are stacked in their favor. Doesn't mean they're good. I mean, I'd be good too if I had investigators start the minute something happened and they did all the stuff for me for free and put my file all together.
Yeah.
Performance enhancing.
I mean, performance enhancing cops. I mean, they have a whole investigative team that knows from the beginning.
You might say
right?
they have a whole police force.
About forces, many forces. So what happens is, in this kind of case for us here in Delaware County, and actually in Pennsylvania and many other jurisdictions, this case could be heard again if the judge did actually dismiss all the charges, if the DA felt there was enough to keep it going a little bit longer.
Now, yeah, right. Obviously not happening in this case, because just to clear up for everybody, the case is still going on Weinstein. The judge didn't let him go.
Yeah, so the judge basically said, "Nah, dog, all the charges are staying in. We're not dismissing anything." And
Which is kind of the right call, I mean, I know we're defense attorneys. We always look for hey, how can we get charges dismissed?
Yeah,
What do we
but
think?
we're people, too.
This is kind of hard, to really, even as defenders, to look at this and say the judge did anything wrong.
I feel like women saying that this awful man forced me to have sex with him when I did not want to is reason enough to hold it over on suspicion of rape.
More likely than not, that's all it's gotta. Yeah.
Right. So
Now that standard goes up as we go on, but for
Absolutely.
this point, we got to hit that. And I mean, right? It's even if you think they're just saying it, the fact that they're saying it is enough to get there.
So quick quiz: the next level, the next court hearing. What is the standard that we use in the next court hearing?
Uh-oh. What is it, Dan?
Wow, thanks.
I'm just kidding. It's beyond a reasonable doubt.
Look at Connor. Connor's like, I'm fine, but I'm really, really smart. I'm really smart. Hey, we have a public defender on, too. I'd love to hear her take on what happens when you move from prima facie case to beyond a reasonable doubt. It should seem like there's going to be a big difference in the burden of proof. But sometimes when you're talking to the district attorney, it isn't always. They're looking at the same information. Well, look at what this affidavit from the police says. And you're like, well, what about what the people testified to or didn't testify to?
And, maybe we have touched about this in previous videos, but if cases go to trial, it doesn't really seem like the jury really comprehends what a reasonable doubt is. It's almost like if there's a doubt that the person's innocent,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, what we mean by reasonable is not, aliens did it. That's not a reasonable doubt. If the only excuse you can think for the guy is aliens did it, that's not a reasonable doubt. But if you think like, maybe he wasn't there that day.
But Bumblebee is an alien, and I'm sorry.
I'm not going to have you slander Bumblebee.
Movie. I really want to see that Transformers movie, and I just feel like if someone told me that cars who transform into beings did it, I wouldn't have believed that, and yet there we have it.
There we have it.
I don't think they're documentaries, Jackie, but I'll let you have that one.
Perhaps they're not documentaries to you, but I love Bumblebee, and I can't wait to see the movie. This is why. But yes, they're not documentaries. And so you're right. Reasonable doubt has to be reasonable. And as this case moves forward, I think the other issue is going to be how many other accusers are going to be allowed to testify, if any.
Well, right now we're talking about the 2013 case. I believe there was an incident that also happened in 2006.
That case is part of it.
So, jumping off of that, were both of those incidents consolidated into one case?
I believe they were. I think they're both being charged now. But here's the other thing. Sometimes you can do something which allows you to show pattern or practice. And so, as a prosecutor, what I'd want to do to bolster my victim's claim is to show other women who've had similar patterns of abuse by Mr. Weinstein. And as a defense attorney, I'd want to keep every single one of them out by saying just because someone else accused you, which by the way hasn't been vetted and he hasn't been convicted of, it does not mean that these other people are telling the truth because somebody else said I did the same thing or my victim, my defendant did the same thing.
Well, just think about it. You're on a jury, you're sitting there watching, one person comes in and says, he raped me, and obviously he's going to get up, or his lawyers are going to get up and say, no, he didn't, and you have 1 versus 1. But if you have 1, then someone else comes in, same story. Someone else comes in, same story. Someone else comes in, same story. It starts to get, even as a jury, even though you're hearing basically the same thing over and over again, you start... And it has to get through to you, is what I'm trying to say.
And what point does it become pylon? Because it may be a bunch of people who are saying, oh, he raped me too, but they've never met him, or they were people who have beef against him, or whatever it is. So you really have to weigh how much is too much and how much can be independently vetted to show that it has some indicia of reliability.
Well, I have enough faith in the prosecutors that they're going to make sure any witnesses they put up there have their things through. This is a big-time case. This isn't just a regular. This is a big-time case.
This is what's so sweet to me, because Dan is a brand-new lawyer. And so Dan has not yet tried a criminal case, which means, unlike some of the things that Connor and I have seen, Dan has yet to see, apparently, an awful prosecutor who tries to get away with things instead of going after what justice would, call them to do.
I guess what I'm saying is I hope this particular prosecutor's office isn't dumb enough to put an idiot on the case.
I hope.
I could be wrong. Now, hey, fair enough, I could be wrong, but I'm really hoping I'm not.
I hope so, too. So, I don't know. What else? Is there anything else about this Harvey Weinstein thing we need to talk about?
Well, here's something that's interesting that I saw observing in a common police court. And just bear with me for 1 second because I'm going to relay to what's going on here. In this particular case that I saw, it was a terroristic threat via someone doing the middle finger.
What?
Yes, it was a terroristic threat.
I've never heard this story before.
Just the defendant just doing the middle finger and then making a gun sling thing by inferring that I'm going to shoot you. So
has anyone ever been shot by the gun finger?
In a comic book, I read it once, but never in real life have I seen it.
Because I don't know anyone who has the power to actually shoot bullets from their finger.
Yes.
I just checked. I do not.
I do not either.
It's absolutely crazy. So the victim comes up, says that all of this happened, that the victim feared for her life, that something bad was going to happen, which is, for all intents and purposes, those are the elements of a terroristic threat. There was a video, too.
Except the one part of the terroristic threat that you didn't mention, which usually has to be the present ability to actually make good on the threat. So, I could say that I'm about to blow up this school right now, but if I don't have a bomb...
Yeah, so that's a good thing that you mentioned that the defendant in question had an extensive history of firearm violations.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here. Both attorneys put up their side of the case. The judge ruled saying that although the victim seems credible through her testimony, the video did not show the actual motion of the gun going like this with the person's hand. And that's the reason why the charges were dismissed. What I'm trying to say is, will a victim's testimony saying that someone raped me be enough to convict somebody?
These are different things, though. If the victim's testimony was that someone raped me and there was a video with no rape, then the same answer would apply, no. But had there been no video, and this is someone who is testifying credibly, then at least at a preliminary level, you have to believe them. But here's the other thing that really interests me, and I'm going to go off on a limb and be real woman right now for this, okay? I am offended and angered by the fact that we seem to think that when it comes to a woman's body or rape, those sexual assault, those things, that's the only situation where you need a camera, 3 forms of identification, 15 eyewitnesses, an ear witness, and somebody who can examine you and prove that you have never lied ever. If I came to you and I ran in and I said, oh my gosh, someone just stole money from me, everyone would call the police and say, I'm a robbery victim. They stole her money. They assaulted her. It was awful. If I came running into the same situation and said, this person just forcibly raped me, they forced me to have sex, people are like, well, did you know them? What were you wearing?
Well, did you consent? Did you really do it?
Right.
Are you sure you weren't? Yeah, I know.
You know, a lot of women are out there combing their hair and taking showers because they want men to have sex with them.
Well, why are you bathing every day?
Right, you're bathing every day. But that's kind of, to me, which is really hard about these kind of cases, is that, you know, you want 15 pieces of evidence to show when someone says that they've been sexually assaulted. Are you sure you didn't consent? Yeah, I'm sure.
Well,
I know.
Funny because, like you said, Colorado, they never ask, are you sure you were robbed? Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I'm sure I was. I just told you I was robbed.
You gave money to a charity last month, though, ma'am. You gave money.
So you have a history of giving away money one time, so are you sure?
But, you know, I don't think any of this is funny, but it's just crazy how the courts can work, and it's crazy for what certain judges look for, what standard judges kind of personally hold, putting aside the whole beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just crazy to see how different courts can operate.
Well, it's not just judges. I mean, obviously it's the whole system. It's who prosecutes, who doesn't. Obviously, I have opinions on what judges should do and how they should be. But I think that it's the system itself and how it's set up. How do we treat victims of certain crimes versus other crimes? How do we determine who's a victim and who's the defendant, even sometimes in mutual combatant situations? So many ways that fairness have to be in play in the court system.
Yeah.
Well, so, anything else that we need to share with our wonderful insights on this case that we have nothing to do with?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens and how quickly the case moves through the system. It'll be interesting to see what the defense decides to do, how they're going to do it. If, for example, whether they're going to request a continuance for further investigation upon their part. It'll be interesting.
Well, the thing I'm looking for is I want to see what kind of along those lines, what kind of defense he mounts. You know, there's really only a couple kinds you can do in it. Generally, you know, it's either they consented, now they're lying, or it didn't happen, or right. You know, I'm kind of curious just to see for myself which way Weinstein's going to go, because especially with all the allegations, are you really going to try to say all 20 whatever didn't happen?
Well, remember, he's not facing all 20; he's only facing the 2 now.
No, I know, but. You know, like you talk about in the media, everything's out there. It's.
So what I'm interested in is a couple of things. 1, how many of the other accusers will be allowed to testify? And 2, what difference will a Harvey Weinstein trial make on the Me Too and the Time's Up movement? Will it mean the death or the resurgence of Me Too if he's convicted or not convicted? And will Time's Up, which is supposed to help alleviate some of these problems and raise money to help victims, will that have a resurgence as the Weinstein trial goes on? Those are the things I wonder about.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us what you're thinking? We'd love to hear from you. You can comment below and we can answer in another video. You should like, you should subscribe, you should subscribe to our podcast, to our YouTube, to our Facebook, to our Twitter, Instagram, all the stuff. And let us know what you think. Check us out. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think about these sort of issues. Do you think that the way the process works for victims of sexual abuse and if those accused of sexual assault, do you think it's fair?
Yep. Please let us know and please comment.
Do you think that the preliminary hearing is a good way to make a determination on whether or not somebody should go forward to trial?
Or is it just an old and outdated system before the United States was even founded?
So we'd love to hear your views. Check us out and let us know. And for me, Jackie Jones.
I'm Connor Wigington.
And Dan DiCino.
We thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.